Hi, good afternoon and welcome everybody to our first webinar of the new year. My name's Paul Upex from the training team.
And I'm Martin Tiemann, also in the training team.
We're with you this afternoon to it's a great session. I think it's going to be the best council candidate you can be. And during the session we're going to share with you some ideas, some best practice, and actually share some of our own experiences. I've been a councillor, I just stood down this year, and Martin, you've been a councillor for how long?
14 years.
So we've hopefully got quite a lot of experience to share with you and answer some of your questions. You should be able to see on the right hand side there's a chat mechanism, and you can use the chat mechanism to ask us questions and also chat with each other as well. So if you want to do that, please go ahead, ask us some questions or ask each other questions. Just say hello as well. So also what would be helpful is, before we do start, that if you could just pop in there on the right hand side that you can hear us, hopefully you can see us and hear us, and that'll be really helpful as well. So please don't be afraid, don't be shy as well to join that some of the chat as well. So Alex, thank you. Maria, I think there's something still loading. There shouldn't be, but thanks to George and Joan.
You can see the slide on the screen, is that right? We'll start scrolling through, and then if there are any problems... Yes, great, thanks Alex.
Brilliant, that's excellent. So, what we're looking at, the aims of today's session. The session should last about 35-40 minutes, depending on how many questions you ask as well. So, I want to share with you some, as I said, our top tips and advice, and show that all of our council candidates are working smart and strategically to the 2019 local elections as well. Also, just to mention as well, if you are out there in the chat and you are a candidate, please just pop on, just if you're standing as a candidate, let us know the area that you're standing in as well. That would be really helpful as well. And yes, we will email you a copy of the slides as well afterwards, and also just refer you to some of the other resources that are available online as well. So yeah, that's the aim. One of the things actually that an outline type of thing is actually your role as a candidate. Is really important to that campaign. We will talk a little bit about this, and we'll say it quite a few times, and I might as well start and say it now, is actually that we don't expect you to do everything. But actually you as a candidate, and if you do get elected, those local circumstances that you're in and the quality of our local candidates can be that difference between winning and losing. Organising a good campaign on the ground that goes that little bit extra in the run up to polling day and on polling day itself can make that difference between winning by less than 10 votes or losing by 2 votes as well, which is what we don't want you to do as well. So yeah, there's lots of different things, and your role as that candidate, and we're sort of split it into 2 areas. There's that bit of recruiting, leading and motivating our volunteers. You are in that unique position to motivate and infuse them. But also that role of people want to meet their local councillors, people want to meet their candidates, speaking to you can make that difference, and anything that might be casework or anything else that people do say to you on the doorstep, do make sure that you do respond back to them. You do get in touch, even sometimes maybe you have difficulty and actually solving an issue might not come up on the doorstep, but the fact that they've spoken to you, the fact that you've taken the time to listen to them, have a good conversation with them, can make that extra difference between that extra vote for you and a local election, sometimes with a lower turnout as well. Every vote does count as well. So the evidence proves that personal contact is the most persuasive communication with candidates. And that can be face-to-face, over the phone, and then followed up by, might be a little handwritten direct mail or anything else, something like that, can make that really crucial difference in your local elections as well. So to achieve all of this, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what elections we have. Some of the roles that you don't need to fill, you've got one already as a candidate, you might have to take on some other roles. The importance of building a team, the importance of offering people training sessions. I don't know about you, but I've worked for the party for over 10 years now, and I've been a local organiser, and there was also that feeling sometimes as a candidate that, no one can do it better than I can, I'm just going to do this myself. And actually it's not building a team, not allowing other people to take on roles and to share that responsibility as well. So there's something inside of us to let go a little bit as well. The importance of mobilising, the importance of meeting, as I've already mentioned, meeting and talking to voters, and also just some of our top tips as a candidate as well. So, as promised there, that's a little brief overview of where the 2019 elections are taking place. And these are the elections that we know of, because we don't know. Obviously, there might be a general election and all of those other things. But these are the ones that we know are taking place this year. 248 local authorities. 240 of these are existing local authorities. We've got some newly created local authorities.
And in fact, George has said that he's standing in Bournemouth East, and that's one of our new authorities, isn't it, George? So you're, and also in one of our early selection seats, one of our key parliamentary marginals. So, George, you're already taking one there.
That's a good bit of local knowledge there, Martin. You have been paying attention. Also, just in total, if you see how many metropolitan districts, district councils in total, there's 8,351 seats that are up for grabs on that day. Obviously, there's no elections taking place in Scotland and Wales, and that's just like a little map there to see where they're all taking place as well. So it really are important elections as well.
And if that wasn't scary enough, this might do. Polling days on Thursday, the 2nd of May, and that means that polls open in less than 100 days. In fact, even less than what's on screen. It's 99 days, 14 hours, and however many minutes there are. So we've got 100 days, more or less, to get this done. But that means planning your time, planning activist time really carefully, and understanding what there is left to do in these last few weeks and months of the campaign. And one of the key messages that Paul mentioned is, you need a team, and all the things that need doing, you can't do this alone. In fact, some of them you should leave to others to do wholesale. So here are some of the things that we think are some of the key things to get filled, and it's often better to get these filled earlier than now, but certainly this is the time when you really start to need people around you, people taking responsibilities off you and the leading people in the local campaign. So on top of you, the candidate, which is absolutely a must. There's no election if there's no candidate. You need an agent who's the legally responsible. You need the campaign organiser or coordinator. It might be for the ward, it might be for the borough, it might be for the parliamentary seat, for the CLP. But you need someone who's taking charge and making some of those decisions. You need people who work with the membership, people who raise money, people who get the leaflets through the doors, people who put the message together and design the leaflets or keep the social media updated in terms of the digital campaigning. And you'll need people on the ground, so you'll need people who'll run the board, people who'll run canvassing sessions around and about the area for you, people who will enter the data afterwards. And need someone to keep you company, keep you where you need to be. So especially if it's a council by-election, the candidate becomes particularly important and is whizzing around. So not every council candidate is lucky to. I don't think I ever had one.
No, I think one of the things that probably also is actually that important of someone coordinating your diary. If there's three of you as councillors, that sometimes it might that you're not all three of you going to the same community event. You might spread a little bit about. So candidate day there is a little bit more, might be say for a parliamentary election, but the diary coordinator is actually is someone coordinating. It might be you, it might be some of the colleagues, but just making sure, going back to our earlier slides, strategically and smart of where you're going to spread that. If you're a team or if you're an individual, spreading yourselves as wide as possible and get that Labour message out to do that as well.
Yeah, and as Paul alluded there, if you're electing in thirds in your wards, there might be existing councillors who are doing all kinds of activities in the community, and you as a candidate, and it's about coordinating your activity between you. And I realise, George, it seems a lot. Partly we mention this because it shows that there are responsibilities that you can spread, and part of the early work you can do is to motivate and recruit people to take these roles, so you're not doing everything. It's better to invest some time into finding people to help now, and that can be people who do this across several wards or do it across the borough, and that way the job's a little bit easier. So really to reiterate, as I said, you can't do this alone. You need a team around you.
So, let's look at some of the challenges now that you might face, because it's easy for us just to sit in here and just say, oh, this is what you should be doing. And so, we do know that it's difficult sometimes on the ground to get people motivated, to get them to think, these are the elections coming up. And what we want to share with you now is just some of these little ideas that might enable to motivate our members as well. And by telling people it's only 99 days to go as well, rather than just saying they're happening in May. John, yes, sorry, I'll just say again, we will send out these slides. I'm not sure why you didn't get them the last time. I'll look into that and make sure that they are sent over to you as well. So, if you just, that's on there, but also just email training@labour.org.uk as a little reminder, training@labour.org.uk, and we'll make sure that you do get them, and everyone does get the slides from today as well. So, just to put it into context, some of those challenges that we're facing. A lot of the things is the uncertainty of the next general election. We don't know what's happening, sometimes a little bit from week to week, day to day, hour to hour with this government. So, it might be that your CLP, you might be focusing on, well, let's get general election ready, or let's do this. And, you've got elections coming up this year, and you want people to focus on them, and rightly so. And we'll talk about the message and communications. It's actually saying to people, if we do well in these elections and there's a general election afterwards, this is form part of all of the building blocks. The narrative will be, if we don't do well in these elections, Labour's not fit and ready to govern in these elections. If we do well and you play your part and people play their part, Labour's on the surge, they're ready to take, whenever the election could be, they're ready to take the keys to number 10 as well. So it's using some of that uncertainty and switch it around and turn it into a positive to try and motivate your members as well. As we'll say there, we need to. So one of the reasons why people sometimes don't volunteer or get in touch is that they don't know what to expect. They don't know if they come to their first door knocking session, they come to their first leafleting session, or they're doing it alone, or they're doing it in pairs, or they're going to be having a lot of new members. So even if you've been a member for 1 year or 2 or whatever, give people that opportunity to to focus. Give that people opportunity to a little bit of training, give them some support as well. Sometimes, our CLPs, with the best will in the world, can get a little bit bogged down on, debating motions and doing other things. And actually, it might not be their focus on supporting you at these elections. And I think it's really important to try and push that focus at your CLPs on these important elections. And goes on to my next point. There's a convention in many areas has been to suspend ordinary branch and CLP meetings for March or April during this period of time, to actually make people focus and get out there on supporting candidates at those elections as well. So it might be something that you do suggest. You go back to your GCs, you go back to your branches, saying, do you know what? We'll have campaign meetings, or we'll have, we'll meet up, but let's go out knocking on some doors, deliver some leaflets, and then meet afterwards. Sort of try and get, to get you that extra support, get other people out there to help you as well. As we say there, the reasons why we want to motivate volunteers, we can talk about the issues that are important to them, because we don't know when a general election is, and so we want to be ready. And some of this work, all of this work, is important to that as well. There's another one as well. It might be a challenge as well, and it's something that we do need to think about and acknowledge that. In some places, the selection process to stand as a candidate can be, a council candidate can be a little bit bruising. And if it has been, why not think about, what can you do to mend any broken bridges, get people together, and actually, focus on that prize, which is winning your local election, returning Labour councillors, and winning the next general election as well. There's a lot of training out there, there's a lot of support for you, and if not everyone can, get themselves, using all the different platforms of Organise, Contact Creator, Campaign Creator, Chatter, all the other different ones that we've got. Make sure that there's other volunteer and support for them as well. So if someone's struggling to input all of the data or to design the leaflet, get in touch with us and we'll point you in the right direction as well.
Helen's asked there to us about voter registration work and how that can be done effectively and in line with the new legislation. I think unless you're in an area with very high levels of non-registration, which is basically where students live often, because they're moving year to year, and they're young normally. It's difficult to know where the non-registered voters are. So it's something you probably need to get out of the way quite quickly at this point in the year, because as you get closer to polling day, you really need to be focusing on people who are registered. There's obviously a time limit for registration, but there are materials you can download or that you can buy from our shop. You can have them with you when you're doing regular door knocking. You can look at who's on the register and work out from that where there are gaps. Remember that a lot of people who are not on the register do so by choice and also because they aren't eligible to vote. So do bear that in mind when you're out there. But it can be really valuable work, probably at this time of year or earlier in the process, rather than as we get closer to the election.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard enough sometimes. We have a turnout in local elections of somewhere between 30 to 35% type of thing.
Less in cities, basically.
And those are people who are registered to vote, etc. So getting someone new on the register and getting them to vote at a general election is one thing, but getting them to then come and vote at a local election after they're just registered is a little bit difficult. But it's not worth, we shouldn't do, but it's about having it done at the right time of year, as Martin said, as well. Right. Okay. Oh, this is good. I forgot who it was there.
So, just to delve into this in a little more detail, but obviously we want to engage and motivate our volunteers beyond the people that are taking on some of those roles that we said already. So, thinking about how we might get people campaigning as candidates and how we can do things, I think it's really important to talk to members about what they care about, but also to find out what they want to campaign on in terms of issues, what local things that matter and motivate them, and what skills they can bring, what ideas they have for the strategy, so get their input in the strategy from the start, and they might have other things that they can bring. Someone might be a really good photographer or be really good on video making or help make cups of tea or whatever you might need. So speaking to your voters, which you might have done when you were getting selected, but carrying on those conversations, motivating people because they have a relationship with you, I think is really important. Also helps you because our members are residents locally, and so they're engaged with their communities and they can tell you what issues are important to them. And that's why we say, we'll talk about this again in a little detail, but focusing on the issue rather than the task. So if you have a leaflet that you're putting out which is about saving the local Shore Start Centre, tell people that that's a leaflet that you want help with, because that will motivate them more than just saying, well, it's our quarterly leaflet, so it's that time of the year again when we need your help. Tell them about the politics, organise around the politics and not the task. And I think also really providing introductory sessions and training to make it easier for people to get involved for the first time and making it social as well, saying thank you. Those are really important principles about how we make it rewarding and valuable and also a little bit less daunting for our members to get involved. So it might be, in terms of making it social, calling people up in advance and arranging to be there so that they have a friendly face. Maybe you've met them for a coffee before the event, so you can just talk through what to expect. And then going for a coffee afterwards or going for a pint and talking to them about how they got on, what they enjoyed, whether they're going to come back next time. Sometimes it's often good to tell them about the next session as soon as they've been. And I often try to send an email to the team that have been out with me when I get home that day just to say thank you. And especially when you're in the short campaign, you might get people who've come out only for the short campaign or only on polling day. And just saying thank you makes it a little bit more likely that they'll come back.
I think it's important as well as it's also just sometimes letting people know how many people you've spoken to that day, and it's a bit like, might be that if you've been out for a couple of hours and you might talk to a couple of hundred people or something like that, and just say, we identified 100 Labour supporters today, we signed up 5 or 10 people to a postal vote, or we did that, you know what I mean? So, just letting people know, that thing, that what they've achieved is really important to do that as well.
And I think moving on, also it's worth thinking about, as I said, finding out what skills are in your your groups, and realising that there are a lot of doors to knock, and that's often the main thing that we need out of our helpers and volunteers. But there are more things that people can do, so we can find a job for everyone. Anyone who wants to get involved, there's always more things that can be done to help. So that might be office management, might be keeping things neat and tidy and well organised, and saying hello to people as they come through the door. It might be staffing street stalls, getting members organised, calling members and checking that they're coming to events, be getting our posters out, our garden stakes out, might be running events. And in terms of training that we can offer, well, there's, as I said, doorstep training and support, including training sessions specifically around this, but also taking 5 minutes at the beginning of every doorstep session to see if there's anyone new, if they want to be talked through the process, if they want to buddy up with someone for the first 3 doors. I think it's really important that when we do training that we explain what GOTV, what getting out the vote is, and how we do it. What are the reasons behind the questions that we're asking on the doorstep and the processes that we're undertaking? Because I think sometimes we just give people, ask this question and get on with it. It's worth taking a little bit of time just to think about whether they understand what we're doing with the data that they collect. And in fact, what happens at the count. So that might not be for everyone, but certainly for those people who are going to the count, you want to tell them what's happening. I think also thinking about what language we use to motivate people to volunteer is really helpful in terms of the emails you might send out. And I think sometimes it's nice that your candidate, as a candidate, is the person emailing out about sessions. Not every email, it's often good to mix things up. But whoever's sending the email, think about the language that mobilises, that inspires our members. Think about what inspires you. That's often the goods guide. And think about what's unique to your area. So in Wandsworth, in London, where we had elections last year, where I was helping out, this is what we put on every single email and our letters to members. We said this was Margaret Thatcher's favourite council, and we can make history by winning it for the first time in 40 years. Fell a bit short last time, but we did really well, got the most seats we ever did in 40 years, and we had hundreds and hundreds of people come to help. Tell them how many votes are in it, that's really close, that their help can make a real difference. Remind them about some of those local issues. So it's not just about beating the other lot, but it's about making a difference, that we're trying to run the council or get extra councillors because it will make a difference on this issue, or send a message to Theresa May, or stop them shutting hospital, or help us deliver better services locally. Reminding them that if you're in a seat like Bournemouth, that Jeremy Corbyn needs us to win here to get into number 10. So by helping George get elected in Bournemouth, that means that we're one step closer to helping Jeremy win number 10. And, often one of the biggest motivators for us in politics is stopping the other lot, and particularly the Tories, but it might be other opposition in your areas as well. That's often, for a lot of members, it's as important that they want to prevent some of the terrible excesses that we see of this government and of our local Tory councils. That's what motivates them to come out and get Labour voters, Labour members elected as well.
And I think it is important that just that when we are mobilising people as well, is actually understanding why people sometimes are being asked to go to certain seats in the council as well. If we have, the Labour might hold, I'm going to say 17 seats and the Tories hold 21 seats, and so we need to win a certain amount of seats to get control of the council, say, and 15 of those seats have been Labour for the last 30 years. What we want to try and do is to mobilise our resources, our people, and our members into those target wards, or maybe target boroughs and target to district authorities, whatever they are. So sometimes you might be asked to go and campaign and somewhere that's near you as well. Even why I'm not campaigning my own council, because it might be that we just need people to come into a certain area to target council, which might contain 2 or 3 target seats that we need to win at the next general election as well. So there is sometimes a method in the madness of sometimes of where you might be asked to go to.
I've been elected 5 times, and I've never spent polling day in my own ward, because I've gone to wards nearby where, by winning those wards, I get to be a councillor in a majority group, and we get to run the council, and that's been really important. We've done lots of work in the run-up to polling day, but on polling day especially, that's when you might have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to mention that there, because there was something that we hadn't mentioned earlier. So this is quite a good point. I think we're going to put on these sort of 5 quick things you can do as a candidate, as what we said, is summing up way. But be active alongside, speak with members and supporters. You know, don't just be the person writing emails and not being visible. Be that person who's shown leadership at the front. You know, don't ask people to do things you wouldn't do yourself.
Yeah.
Build good relationship with your other councillors, other candidates. You know, set up little WhatsApp groups, set up other little sharing when you're going to be out and what you're doing, and good stories, bad stories, funny stories, selfies, pictures of cats and dogs, whatever you want. You know what I mean? It's got to be try and make it fun as well. Try and make sure that you're asking your MP, your parliamentary candidates, or whoever you might have. Let them know when vote ID sessions are taking place as well, so that they can come along to them as well. Making sure that you are reaching out to the unions, the local co-op, and other sort of maybe campaign groups that are in the local area who support Labour views and ideals. Think about that idea of you might go out door knocking on a Saturday morning or a couple of sessions a week. Take that time on a Sunday to phone up your key activists to actually say, oh, this is taking place next week. Can you come along to that? And also just the opportunity just to say thank you as well. If you haven't done so already, think about organising a membership mobilisation event before the start of the short campaign. Off the top of my head, I can't remember when the short campaign will start. It is probably about the middle of March, I would think, 6 weeks before polling day usually. So you've got a bit of time there. You know, get people together, make a little bit of a fundraiser. So yeah, try and do that as well if you can as well. Just going to quickly add a couple of quick questions that have come in. Maria, I'm still not sure why you can't seem to hear us. A lot of other people have got answers.
It might be worth refreshing the website if you haven't done that already.
Also, Joan saying that it's a little bit out of sync. I think it's one of those things because it's a web broadcast camera. We're not here in a proper studio. It is something that we can try and look into with colleagues on that, and that's the sort of Cisco WebEx providers.
We do record these, and sometimes you might find that the recording is better synced, and we can to both of you perhaps send the recording link so you can see if it works for you that time better.
Okay, thank you for that as well. So just moving on. Engagement voters. Yes, this is me as well. We've talked about this before, and it's not a lot of it is actually rocket science. And I did mention this earlier about actually you meeting those important key voters who are going to go out there and vote for you as well. And it is that thing of actually rationalising your time over these next 99 days as well. And being smart about who it is that you're speaking to. Don't spend I'm going to say this now, but don't spend half an hour on the doorstep with someone who always votes Labour, votes at every election, and you're guaranteed their vote. What you're better off doing is actually spending 10 minutes each with 3 Labour voters who voted Labour at general elections, but for whatever reason they might not vote Labour at the local election as well. By all means, say thank you and thank them for their support, that person who votes Labour all the time. That's really important. We don't take voters for granted. But if you're going to have a deep and meaningful conversation with someone, then you're better off spending it with those people who might not always vote Labour as well, and spending that bit of extra time with them as well. So that's thinking when you are on the doorstep campaigning. Think about if you go out blitzing, which is you as the candidate, quick saying hello, running around, showing some energy, showing some enthusiasm, and meeting those key voters. That's blitzing. We'd probably do that a little bit nearer towards the sort of polling day as well. Think about what you're doing on street stalls as well. Don't just talk to ourselves. That's one of the things. Sometimes I'm not the biggest fan of street stalls, but because we end up just talking to ourselves a lot of that time. We might have 6 or 7 people out on that street stall, and they're just chatting with each other. They're not chatting with potential voters, and also they're not sometimes chatting with. You don't know whether they're people who actually live in that local area as well. So it's important. You might have a petition there to do something else, or I think going back to it earlier, a register to vote thing or something like that. You might have some of the cards you can buy, or some of the forms as well. and at all times making sure that we're legal in the laws of actually people registering to vote as well. So make sure that you are aware of that as well. Think about some school gate activity, handed out some specific leaflets. One of the things that I did as a candidate, we picked some of the 10 biggest roads in the local area as well. We had a risograph, which is like a very two-colour printing machine, and we actually done some road-specific leaflets as well. So that's a good thing to do. Or some school-specific leaflets as well, so especially around the primary school.
Yeah, we did ones last year about school cuts. So we estimated for each school, using the figures you can find online, for each school how much the cuts were proposed for that school and what that meant in terms of teachers in that school, and that meant that we could put out a specific leaflet for each one.
So so it's really good to have some, obviously, building those relations with the local groups, another know your local area type of thing if you don't already know that. Also have some follow-up calls with vital voters, which is, we're going to bit more on that a little bit later as well. So, this is still me, my voice is going a little bit here. These are some of we've identified the local groups that you might, as a candidate, and you will, hopefully you're all elected, have relationships with. Business forums, chambers of commerce, community associations, tenants and residents groups, religious groups, some sort of single issue groups. For an example, it might be that it's a 20 mile per hour campaign or safer roads group.
Yep.
Friends of Parks are a really good thing, and I helped set up a couple of Friends of Parks groups as well. Pensioners forums, youth forums, some school groups as well. Home watch schemes like neighbourhood watch schemes, your local safer neighbourhood panels, and also that is on the bottom there, community and parish councils as well. That I know is not a definitive list. There's so many more other ones as well that you've got. If you do want to, let us know what other groups you've reached out to as well. But there's just an idea of some of those groups that you should be.
We do some other training which talks about mapping your local area, and that's a really good exercise to spend a bit of time early in the campaign, or early in your time as a councillor if you're fortunate enough to get elected, to sit down and just plan out your wards and who the stakeholders are, who the influencers are, what the important groups are, where you can meet people who are going to make a difference. It's a really handy way, and then you can target those people and target those groups.
And one of the things that you could do sometimes is actually, if you have an email link, and you might want to write it just that it's from you as a candidate, but include that as a link where people can actually sign up to register to vote online, and ask these other groups to actually share them with their members as well. So what they do is they might include your name as the fact that, council candidate has sent this on to us, to ensure that people have got the opportunity to register to vote. You're not going to get a tough political message out of that, because most of those groups won't do that. But the fact that you're concerned enough to send that out, you'll help reach some of the different groups as well. And I also think with some religious groups as well, and pensioners forums, is just leaving some leaflets there with them to register to vote, and say, and they can return them then to your local authority as well. One of the things I would say is a word of caution with regards to building relationships with local groups as well, is actually that sometimes they can take up a lot of your time and a lot of your energy as well, and obviously they can reflect those concerns of a larger section of your electorate, but you know what I mean, solely engaging with that group, they're not going to be reporting back saying, you're fantastic and fantastic. Sometimes we can spend too much time with a particular organised group. What you want to do is make sure that get that balance right, that you listen to those wider voters who may not shout the loudest, who do vote, and listen to as well. And that's why getting that balance between door knocking, telephone canvassing is really important as well. Spending that quality time with people on the doorstep, speak to them on an individual basis as well. So just make sure you are getting that balance right as well. And sometimes, I don't know if the councillors on this as well, but sometimes councillors can still spend too much time down the town hall, not enough time speaking to voters as well. So getting all of those balances is difficult, but it's definitely worth us, I think, mentioning it as well. So we've mentioned earlier about, and I said I would talk about these key voters as well. And these vital voters, key voters, whatever you want to call them, those are people who might need that follow-up phone call. They might need another visit from you as a candidate as well that we've identified on the doorstep. And they can put into three sort of general categories. People who might have voted Labour previously. They might have voted for us back in 2017, or they voted for us at council elections, and they might be saying this time around, I'm a little bit undecided. So it's really important that you might want to give them a phone call, you might want to go knock on the door. If you haven't spoken to them, try and follow that up as well. Other people that we want to, key voters, and this might be direct mail and other communications, are those people who are potential switchers. They're undecided. They don't know. They've switched between Labour, Conservative, they've got Labour to Lib Dem, or UKIP to Labour, whatever journey that they've been on. But if they're now considering voting Labour, there's a possibility that they might vote for us, then we do need to follow that up as well. And that goes back to squeezing some of those minor parties as well, squeezing that Green vote to come and vote for Labour, squeezing that Lib Dem vote, other minor parties who would prefer Labour government, would prefer Labour council to a Conservative one as well. So those are some of the things. Some of the actions that you can take is actually telephone them or a little handwritten note that we met on the doorstep today, or you met someone from the team today, or there's a bit of casework that they've given to someone else in the campaign team, and you're following it up as well, with your local councillors if you've got them, or make sure that the rest of the team that if there is three of you in that ward and that team, that you are sharing that between all three of you as well. It's not just everyone who's on the webinar today to do that as well. So yeah, and Martin, I'm just going to talk a little bit about social media, and I'm going to just have a little clear my throat.
So obviously these days, face-to-face leaflets and talking on the phone aren't the only ways that we reach voters, or that voters talk to each other, and we have to factor in digital campaigning as well. So in terms of this kind of reaching out, finding out about local issues, local groups, what's going on in the area, and then reaching and being part of that conversation yourself, it's important that you're aware of what exists locally. So you might want to check out local Facebook groups. Then I know in my ward there are Facebook groups for sets of roads, there are Facebook groups for parents of the local schools and people who attend the local church. There's Facebook groups for the wider area, for everyone who lives there, and people who just, do things and active around certain areas. So it's worth mapping out and understanding how some of those are places where people just argue and shout and moan. Others are just where people exchange views. There's a new app, I don't know if anyone might want to comment whether they have it in their area, but Nextdoor is much more focused around local areas. So there's a lot of, does anyone know a good plumber in the area, or does anyone want my old sofa? But in amongst all of that, I certainly pick up a lot of casework. Someone says, they're always missing my bins, or has anyone heard this thing that I've heard, a bit of a rumour, and that's the kind of, because it's very local next door, and you can only join if you prove that you live in that area, so you're not kind of getting outsiders kind of commenting there. You do find out about local issues, and it's just handy to pick up those things. You can engage, you can get involved, you can make comments, you can point out what Labour's doing on this issue, or you can just ask questions and engage, and it's handy to point to our local pledges in a campaign as well. If we've heard these issues and then we're going to address them, and that's part of our platform, say so. But obviously, like anywhere where you're putting your views online, be cautious. Be aware who you're engaging with. Remember, just as Paul said with the local groups, that people online aren't representative of everyone. It can often be the people who are angriest about an issue who go online to talk about it, but that doesn't mean that everyone in your community agrees. And you've got to be careful. Sometimes being online, it's a bit easier to get involved in fights and disputes and using intemperate language, doing it at the wrong time of day, on your own without having considered. So it's always worth taking a step back, thinking about what you're going to say and who you're saying it to. Don't forget that the Tories and others are probably on these groups as well, and you don't just want to get in a tit-for-tat situation. I think social media is really good when you look like you're one of them and you're engaging, and you reinforce that you're a local who knows about the area, rather than just being a politician coming on and kind of stamping out debate. So just be careful about the tone that you take, just as much as what you're actually saying. because social media and online communications obviously deserves a slightly different way of talking.
One of the just things to add to that as well, Martin, is I think it's important that if you are out and about, it might be that you're buying something locally, you're supporting your local businesses, you might be eating, you might be drinking, you might be going to your local cinema, but actually do a thing about supporting, tweeting, saying supporting those local businesses as well, a tweet or Facebook. Obviously maybe at the beginning of the night rather than at the end of the night if you're going to a local restaurant or pub, but actually showing that you're out and about, and you're like other people there. It's really important. Actually encouraging people to support local businesses is really important.
There's only Twitter, which I haven't mentioned there, but lots of people do use Twitter and they use it to document, what they've had for lunch, and so if you're using it like normal people use it, but reinforcing your political credentials, just as Paul says, I think that's a really good use, especially of Twitter, because often your personal Facebook is rightly less visible. And then as well as finding out where people are and engaging with them there, you'll also want to make your own case online. So this is something I think that candidates and councillors particularly good for you to take on, but get some help if you need it, or if you're going to be very busy and to keep it relevant. So consider a dedicated Facebook page for your ward team, because you don't want to accept everyone as your friend on your personal Facebook, but it also means that you can do other things around the Facebook page. You can bring the team into it. You can make sure that your content is engaging, that it's relevant, and that it's frequent, so that you're updating it regularly. Think about what times. People are reading Facebook when they're often like on the bus or on the train, on their way to or from work. So at the beginning or end of the working day are really good times to put things online, even if you just schedule it to go out later. Those are good times of day to do it during the working week. One of the things that's really engaging is always very visual things, particularly video, but images too. Images of you and yourselves doing things out and about, images of things that people connect with, so landmarks in the area, the local school. And keeping it concise on Facebook, so almost let the images speak for themselves with a couple of sentences, but you can link it to your local website or indeed to other news that's coming from other areas or things that your MP is doing. It doesn't just have to be content about you. It can be your comment on local issues. It can be things that the council are doing, that the MP are doing, that Jeremy Corbyn's doing, things that you think are relevant and will work with your local community. And one of the things you can do is have a local website where you're putting more information up and keeping more things updated. So if anyone is interested in finding out a bit more, they can click on the link and read what your take on it is. We have a service here where you can build a Labour WordPress website, which you can get at laboursites.org, and the team here can help you set one up. We have one for my local Labour group, and I've put there Cat Smith MP as an example of what it looks like. You can put your events, you can put news, you can put your blog, you can put links, contact details, that kind of thing. It's really helpful.
Yeah, I would suggest don't have you as a personal candidate have your own website. It's always got to be that team for the area.
Yeah.
That, you know what I mean? So that is to a ward, or the street councillors, or because what there's nothing worse to also do. I think you mentioned there is actually if you don't have that content updated as well, and you will be busy as well doing all of those other things. So it's really important to do that.
A couple of other things just to mention on making a case online, that Facebook advertising is really important and useful these days at reaching people. There's quite a lot of technical stuff around it, so it's not always the thing that we as candidates are best placed to do, but it's really handy if you can get your campaign generally to look at it, because it involves spending money. You'll need to make sure your agent approves it, just like you would with your literature. But we do have a tool in-house here in the Labour Party to make that really easy to connect to your Facebook page with our tools, so you're advertising at people who vote in your ward, and you can use that very directly and make sure you're advertising at the right people. I think the other thing to say is that campaigning online isn't an alternative to doorstep and print, and it's really useful to do it together, so that you're tying things up. So if you're doing a leaflet to post to voters to remind them to vote, you'll also be doing a Facebook post to the same people, and it's just almost you have a grid of all those things together. And always get lots of pictures about all the, just as we said about on Twitter, do the same on your Facebook page. Get pictures of you out and about, meeting people, going to the landmarks in your area, going to those restaurants, the pub, the school, the church, the mosque. All those things are really helpful.
Having photos just sometimes at street signs at the end of streets as well. I know people like that. One thing, because we have got other presentations about into how to take good photographs, and we've seen so many bad photographs as well. So make sure you don't just have photographs in front of brick walls or blank walls and things like that. They just do look a little bit like I don't know. They look bad. They look bad. So yeah.
And you as a candidate, as well as saying on photographs, that's of you. That's one of the roles that you are in the campaign, is your face and your name. So do think about when you make sure you get really good photographs. So you work with your organizer and your ward coordinator to get some great ones. Take some different jackets, scarves, whatever, so that if you're doing a day of photographs, you look a bit different in each of the photographs. Move around the area. You don't just want 6 head and shoulders shots or 6 team shots that all look basically the same. You want a variety of nice photos that are quite engaging, but look out for the extra training that we have.
And also sometimes I always find it on a photograph as well, it's actually just having a red clipboard in your hand as well and a pen. It looks like, it gives you something to do with your hands, because I wave mine a lot. So that's another little tip. But there are out there as well. So I think we're nearing the end. If you have got any questions, do just pop them on now, because I think we're running over time here. I think we're just going to quickly touch on polling day, Martin. Yeah. And then I think we're off that, but then we're finished.
Well, so polling day is the end, and it's the last day of the campaign. And so really, it's the day when you and your activists are most needed. So be available, be there on time, be where you're expected to be. Take time off work if you can, the week, or at very least the day. Pace yourself. Sometimes we do things very early in the morning, but you might be needed at the count. So if you can find other people to do the very early stuff, then do. But be where you need to be. And if that's not your ward, then understand why and lead in that role. You're the candidate, and if you're saying, well, I'm going to go to where I'm needed most for Labour to do well, lead your volunteers with you. And when you're with volunteers, get stuck in, do the jobs that you're asking them to do as well. As a candidate, we shouldn't be above anything that any of our volunteers are doing. But move around, go to the different committee rooms if you have more than one, and remember to say thank you to people as you're doing it. Make a cup of tea. That's often something you can really do when to help them have a rest. And then also, as well as coming back to the 2 things we said at the beginning, one is mobilising and engaging your volunteers. The other thing is meeting your voters. So maximise your time on polling day, meeting the voters, and that's on the doorstep, just as we always do, but also some of that high visibility things, such as the school gates or at train stations at those busy times of day, in the morning and in the evening, when you might be able to catch a lot of people, especially if it's the one where everyone in your ward goes to. That can be a really handy way to meet a lot of voters very quickly in a high visibility way. So that's a really good place for candidates to be.
Brilliant. Thank you, Martin. I've got one experience. I remember a candidate once who had, I was organising, and they'd arranged to have their car have their MOT on the day of polling day, and it was just, I don't understand why. So when it is. It's on Thursday, the 2nd of May. Please make sure that you obviously get all of your nomination forms in as well, because then you won't be a candidate. Yes. Be the best candidate you can be. Just here a couple of some links to some of the resources that we've got to you. If you want to get in touch with us, training@labour.org.uk. That's Martin, I, and Olivia and Rebecca, other colleagues in the training team can answer questions. Resources can be found there, labour.org.uk/training. We have a fantastic just launched a conference last year, online e-learning platform, achieve.labour.org.uk, that you can push other members to have a look at. It's all to all Labour members as well. Make sure that you do promote it as well. We'll have a specific local government section as well that you can have a look at as well.
Lots of campaigning advice.
There is as well. So if you want to get in touch with the Labour membership team, if there's any membership queries you've got, get in touch with us at labour.org.uk. Telephone numbers to the membership team as well. Other things about your membership, that if you're a newer member or if you've got other new members, you can direct them towards those 2 sites as well. that is about 50 minutes it's been, but it's been really good. We've really enjoyed it. We hope you have. I hope that you found it useful. I just wanted to say good luck with all of your campaigns. Everyone here in your regional office and in your local offices, and up at head office, we're all here to support you. Do ask us, get in touch, and we can help, or we can point you in the right direction as well. So please do that. Get in touch with us. Let us know how you get on. Good luck with all of your campaigning. And as we said, thank you for all of the work that you will do and have done as well. So thanks a lot and good night.
Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.